what I'd like to do is introduce to you, who really needs no introduction, our Dean of the College, Moss Kaveh. Moss, would you like to say a couple words?
Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this really very valuable and long-awaited rollout of we hope, a better, but more importantly, a simplified tool for performance management, something that is critical and important to all of us who have supervisory roles in various ways. As you can see from my window, I don't know where you are, but it's a beautiful day. Leaves are green. I'm just skipping part of another meeting I'm in where we are, where the subject, as many of you may know, is mental health. And mental health, of course, has so many different dimensions, while the focus of this particular summit is on students. The issues of mental health for everybody is critical and something that we're all concerned about. And performance, students clearly have their own stresses in many different ways, part of which is related to performance, performing on courses, performance on exams, and so forth. And for the rest of us who are even on the managerial side of things, we also have to deal with our own performances and doing the best we can under now, at least for now, under very difficult and unusual circumstances. So anything we can do to clarify expectations, set reasonable and expectations under difficult circumstances particularly, and do it simply as possible and as clearly as possible to reduce a lot of the overhead that everybody faces, frankly, in our institutions on things that are outside of the sort of a core things that, for example, faculty are here to do is critical. So I'm truly grateful for my colleagues. Joy, Dave, I know, and others have worked very hard together with the Office of Human Resources. And I very much appreciate Christina joining us to work with Joy in presenting the tool. And who doesn't like something that's simplified? I mean, that's really the ultimate goal in something that's so critical and important for all of us. So thank you again for joining us. I may not be able to stay. Actually, I may come and go in the meeting as I'm multiplexing between these two meetings. So thank you, Joy, again for giving the opportunity to at least open the meeting. Have a great one.
Thank you, Moss. Appreciate it. So again, for those who just joined, my name is Joy Wise Davis, the HR Director for the college. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. As Moss mentioned, I have with me today Christina McGuire, who is from Leadership and Talent Development, and Eric Mundahl, who is our Employee Relations Consultant from OHR, might be hopping on and off as well. For your information, this session will be recorded, and so you will have an opportunity to view this later. It will be on our CSE YouTube channel in about 2 weeks or so, once we get everything put together. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. If you have any questions, please put those in the chat. We will be monitoring those. There will be opportunities for Q&As as we move through the slides. And we're asking everybody to please mute yourselves so that we can cut down on background noise. So I think we will get started. With regards to this performance management process, as Moss mentioned, and as you see with the communications, we're wanting this to be a simplified process. We're definitely hoping and think that it is better, but I think simplified is really the key. We are transitioning to this because we feel that this is going to bring benefits to the college in addition, or while bringing benefits to you as supervisors as well as you as employees. And we feel that goals are going to be aligned to advance the key priorities, and you'll be able to capture those goals. You'll be able to have regular check-ins to discuss those goals, and it should be easier to actually put those goals to paper. We're hoping to build supervisor skills and confidence to effectively manage performance. Big thing is it's going to be a key time saver. And intentional effort is going to be directed to positively impact the successful performance of employees. We're hoping that this is going to bring increased engagement, and really this is going to bring alignment across the university. There have been several pilot groups, and so far the feedback has been very positive. As you may be aware from recent communications, there's also a new tool involved, and this particular tool is called the Performance Appraisal Tool, PAT for short. So you'll hear that throughout this presentation. And we're going to take a spin through the background of this refreshed approach. We'll share the new process today. We'll describe some next steps and attempt to answer any questions that you may have. So I will now turn it over to Christina, and she will carry on.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy, and good morning again to everyone. I'm really excited to be here today to share more about this simplified performance management approach and kind of bring everybody into the discussion, and also answer any questions that you may have from the process side, from the implementation side. So anything that you may be wondering about when it comes to engaging and using this process and the tool, as Joy had mentioned. So first of all, here are the guiding principles that this process is built on. The simplified approach is designed to be exactly that simple. So simple tools, a simple process, just clear and focused goals. As the Dean just mentioned too, there's a lot going on right now. So it's really even more important now, always should be, but even more important now to really be clear about what is important, and then to keep it simplified so that the effort and the time that you do have with performance management is spent on the things that are effective and are helping goals be achieved. It is grounded in the science of what drives performance. So you'll see that as we go, the different aspects of it, research and best practice have demonstrated that these are the things that do lead to effective performance management. And then also consistently implemented. So we're kicking it off today with CSE, which is really exciting to do. We've also worked with other units across the university in order to implement the same process. So consistently within colleges and units, but also that goal of being consistent across as well. So everybody has a similar approach to that. So as we go through this information today, you may realize that you might be doing some of this already, which is really great. So when we get to the goals, maybe you're setting goals, maybe your goals are really effective, or having those conversations. So hopefully you see this as an opportunity to refine and reflect on maybe what you could be doing differently, maybe a little bit better based on the information shared today. But overall, we hope that you find that this simplified approach reduces that administrative burden that you may have experienced in previous years, and provide you with the tools, the resources, and the workshops and training in order to be successful when it comes to performance management. Here is the view of the traditional, which is that top graph there, versus the effective performance management process. So just kind of a comparison between how they typically function. With the traditional, typically there's a lot of activity at the beginning of the year, and maybe this is what you've experienced in prior years. a lot of activity around what are the goals, setting the goals, wordsmithing the goals, defining what the goals are, discussing goals, and then they get put on a shelf, and then the real work gets done throughout the year. And then at the end, there's another flurry of activity to find the goals, where the goals, update the goals, and to write maybe complex performance reviews at the end of the year. So with the simplified approach, the activity shifts. So we still have the goals at the beginning, the formal review at the end, but then more of the activity takes place during the year to talk about how are the goals progressing and to building those relationships and making connections throughout the year, so that when you do get to the end of the year, it minimizes the surprises. Some of the work has already been done for you throughout the year as well. So this, again, just a snapshot and recap of what we mean when it comes to simplified performance management. Again, this is an evidence-based best practices that drive effective performance management, grounded in those three aspects there on the slide. So first, setting those broad and challenging and effective goals, conducting those quality ongoing conversations throughout the year, and then at the end of the year, having a formal review that is focused on the big pieces. So today we're going to, as kind of the kickoff, we're going to continue talking about this big picture, this overview, but in the future, and Joy will share more at the end. And you may have seen in recent communications about future resources for everyone to kind of dive deeper into these aspects, as well as supervisor workshops to provide some more opportunity to discuss and share examples further. So, excuse me. The content and kind of the approach and how we're approaching the information today really assumes that we're at the beginning of the year, setting the goals and starting from kind of that day one or day zero approach. But the reality is we're about halfway through the year. So with the performance cycle being that March, February timeframe, so we're not at the beginning anymore. However, these behaviors, the goals, the conversations, they're designed to be cyclical, so you can pick them up and start them at any time. So at this point in the year, if you have goals, awesome. Maybe a time to go back and reflect and kind of revise them as you move them into the system, the PAT, which we'll talk more about here in a moment. But if you don't have goals, it's an opportunity, to think about what is important right now, what is important to be working on between now and the end of the performance year. Same with quality conversations. So, if you haven't been doing them, this would be a time to start, pick up some strategies today and start practicing the implementation of them. And if you have been doing them, great, maybe some strategies today that you'll find to review and do them even better. So it's really about starting wherever you're at now and practicing and refining these skills between now and the end of the year. And then in the future, it'll help you be in a better position and be ready to, at the start of the next performance cycle in March. So again, think of this as kind of a time to practice, implement, revise, refine. Wherever you're at, think about what's going to be practical and realistic for you. So why should you care? So, well, first, thank you for joining us today again. Hopefully you've already heard some things that you find would be a big win for your own work, for your team's work, for the department, college as well. By engaging in this stuff, hopefully you find things more engaging and rewarding as you accomplish your work. And it's really taking performance management away from those mechanics and where to click or what form to fill out, and focusing it more on meaningful work on what really matters. So hopefully you find that it reduces and simplifies the time and the effort, but at the same time, the focus that you do feel that you are successful in achieving your goals, and the focus is on the goals, is on your accomplishments, is on the development, and then what you're contributing at the individual level ultimately then helps move the college forward as well. So what to expect? So we've kind of touched on this already, but just kind of a recap. So for the simplified approach, what you can expect as supervisors and employees is additional tools and resources to provide more strategies around goals, ongoing check-ins, completing the performance review form as we get to that toward the end of the year, that particular piece. And then also, this new process and simplified ways in which to implement and manage performance. And then supervisor workshops as well. So as Joy mentioned, specific training for supervisors to come together to develop their skills as supervisors and to be more confident in managing performance, and then learning from each other as well. So overall, hopefully you find it is simpler, so simplification, and then support both as employees and supervisors using this process. So the next few slides, we're going to kind of touch on those different elements of the overall approach, the goals, the ongoing check-ins, and the formal review as well. So the formal review or the process starts with the goals. The goals, the purpose of the goal is to get the right work done effectively. So we all have, maybe our work has different qualities and characteristics than our coworkers or other colleagues in the college, but whatever we're doing, we want to make sure that the right work is done effectively. So when it comes to setting goals around our work, science says that people with goals perform better than those without goals. So it is good to have goals. Bigger goals deliver bigger results. So making sure that they're crafted in a way so employees or yourself, as supervisors, are as working, that you feel engaged and that you feel that they are meaningful, that you are making meaningful contributions to the team, to the department, to the college. Who sets the goal doesn't matter. So this refers to whether the employee brings a goal to the supervisor, suggests and crafts their own, or whether the supervisor assigns a goal to the employee. Either way, both work. So don't spend a lot of time figuring out, who's the best person to do it, or work together collaboratively. And fewer goals deliver higher performance. So keeping goals limited in number helps the work be focused on what is really important. It also helps you kind of discern what is really important to get done this year, or maybe wait until next year to do. So some prioritization in there as well. So taking that research, translating into strategy, here's strategies for setting effective goals. So when it comes to goals, they should be simple, so specific, important, and measurable. So again, that measurable piece, it could be qualitative, it could be quantitative, it may look different based on your goal or based on where you're at or based on other peers that you work with. But that measurable piece is, what are you going to be paying attention to from the beginning to the end of the year that you will be monitoring for change? Goals should describe both the results. So what is the outcome that you expect by accomplishing it, and the behaviors or the how of it. So how should the employee working on the goal engage in order to accomplish the what? They should be aligned. So employees should be clear about what their contribution is and aligned with other work being done. Few in number, so there's that limited, so it keeps it focused on what is truly important. And flexible. So in any year, maybe more so this year, a lot of changes in resources and other context beyond our control. So keeping things flexible, so yourself as supervisors and yourself as employees can be successful in achieving the goals and can flex throughout the year as needed. So once the goals are set, they are then operationalized through ongoing check-ins. So the goals essentially become the agenda for the conversations throughout the year. Ongoing check-ins by definition are a conversation between an employee and a supervisor in order to discuss how the goals are going, get feedback around the goals, discuss next steps about what to do in order to move the goal toward progression or toward accomplishing the goal. Best practices say that at a minimum, employees and supervisors should meet at least 15 minutes each quarter. And as I say that, if that sounds like too much, maybe you start there and you back off if it is too much, or if it doesn't sound like enough, then maybe you start there and you add more additional check-ins with, between employees and supervisors. So at a minimum, that's a best practice, making sure that you stay connected as well and being intentional about it. So you might have a lot of different reasons there might be a lot of different reasons for employees and supervisors to connect, but with these ongoing check-ins, it's being intentional to make sure that the goals are discussed and feedback is shared when it comes to progressing the goals. So after the goals, the form. So this would be at the end of the year, the performance appraisal tool, as Joy mentioned, or the PAT is the system that CSE will be using for the performance management. This system was originally developed by the health sciences and then recently retrofitted to support this simplified performance management process. So when Access opens, and I know Joy will be speaking to that here momentarily, when you log in as an employee, you will see this landing page. So it'll say some information there at the top. The two options that you'll have on the bottom are one, that goals, and two, the performance evaluation. So as you enter the landing page as an employee, the goal space, when you click on it, it takes you to a screen where you can enter your goals, the title, the description, the due date. So pretty intuitive, pretty straightforward on entering that information. The second one there, the performance evaluation, even though it says performance evaluation, it is open throughout the year. As employees, when you click on that, oops, now my Zoom decides to freeze on me. So let me see. There we go. The cold weather from outside is affecting and freezing my Zoom inside. So the employee input. So when you click on that performance evaluation from the employee viewpoint, you come to this screen here where we talk about this screen as the employee input screen. So this is a space that's open throughout the year as an employee to capture conversations, to capture, you need to update goals, you would do that in the goal update piece, but this would be to capture any bullet points, details, things that you may want to do, capture throughout the year. This is then available, or this would be what you would complete at the end of the year as well. So as you do it throughout the year, that would build throughout, so you would have that to reference at the end of the year. During the performance year, the performance cycle, the employee and the supervisor have this as a shared screen. So as supervisors go in through their supervisor access, they would have a screen that would have the employee input side by side with their supervisor pieces as well. So employees and supervisors would share the view for the employee input piece, but wouldn't share the supervisor piece. That would say just on the supervisor's view. And then at the end of the year, they would then come together. The form itself, the two big pieces of it, and again, you'll see this is mainly narrative, again, keeping it simple so you can speak to the important accomplishments and the behavioral competencies here. So it's what was accomplished and how it was accomplished. And again, throughout the year, maybe in draft form, and then at the end of the year would be an opportunity to refine and revise that. At the end of the year, the other piece that the supervisor access has available is the rating level. So in this simplified performance management process, there's 3 rating levels and more information to come as we approach the year-end time where that becomes more applicable. But I think before it was a 5 level, it's down to 3, improving performance, meeting expectations, and exceeding expectations, with some description around what those different ratings mean. So I went over a lot of information about the process, the big picture overview, and then a little bit about the goals, the ongoing check-ins, and the forms. So at this time, open for questions. What can we answer for you today before we moved into some more detailed next steps? If you do have questions, just to kind of reiterate what Joy had shared earlier, if you could throw them in the chat, and we can answer them from there. So maybe not a lot of questions at this point, which is fine. But as you think about how you might apply this or start using this, as wherever you sit within the college as an employee, as a supervisor, what questions come to mind? So question there, where can I find CSE's goals to align with mine? So Joy, if you could chime in on that one.
Absolutely. So what we will be doing, actually, we do not have CSE's goals in or on the form. That is something that your supervisor will be sharing with you because they will align with the department's goals, and you can have that conversation one-on-one with your supervisor, how, based on the college's goals, department's goals, and then your unit's goals if you have another layer there. Let's see.
Other questions that come to mind at this point. So anything around kind of maybe where you're at with how you've been working through some of these behaviors, or any other current context that you're wondering, like how might this work best for you?
I also have a question. An employee may feel that they're falling short on something that the supervisor does not consider important. So I think this would be, the way I would answer that is, this is where the check-ins are very important. This is where, which is why you probably want to have more frequent check-ins than 15 minutes a quarter, because this is where you need to align as a supervisor with your employee and vice versa, what exactly is being worked on. This is the importance of the goal setting as well, so that you can determine what is important for this year. The flexibility is important because as you are checking in, you may find, hey, this is no longer relevant. So therefore, we need to flex. We need to change it. If it's something that is important to the employee, but not the supervisor, I think that's where you really have to have that dialogue to say, well, tell me how this aligns with our department's goals. How does this align with the college's goals? And really have that dialogue, because they may be doing it, they mean the employee might be doing it for professional development. And you could set a goal for professional development. And so therefore, I think that that's the time where you can kind of negotiate, where you may have two business goals and a professional development goal. Sometimes those things are intertwined, but I think that that's where you have those check-ins and are talking about that consistently. Let's see.
And to add one thing to that, and to the opening remarks that we heard the dean say too, that helps with that clarification, or that crystal clear clarification of expectations. So if something, and maybe things flex throughout the year too, that at the beginning of the year, it's clear and there's alignment, but then something happens, new resources, new information, and it seems misaligned. And it seems like maybe the supervisor and the employee aren't necessarily on the same page. So again, back to that dialogue that Joy just mentioned, to kind of course correct and get everybody realigned.
Another question came through. Will there be a required D&I goal with upcoming performance reviews? I hope so. The college hasn't set a required D&I goal, but I would encourage everyone to have a D&I goal. Let's see. Is there? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You were going to read the same thing, no. Joy. Go for it.
Is there a box in the form for the employee to acknowledge where they came up short and want to improve? It seems like this is integral to improvement, especially in professional development, especially for postdocs who are considered staff. So I'll actually answer the bottom part first with regards to postdocs. So I know there's some departments out there that actually have a form for postdoc reviews. So it will be up to your, I'll say this now, it'll be up to your departments whether or not you will want to use the PAT tool for postdocs. Right now, the college is saying that the PAT tool is going to be, is requiring civil service and bargaining unit staff to use the tool. P&A are optional, as well as postdocs. And now for the meat of the question. So there will be an opportunity for employees to create a narrative about, yes, this is what I did, because they're still going to have the opportunity to kind of do a self-reflection. And in that part, they will be able to talk about where they had opportunities, how they overcame those opportunities, or plans to do so in the future.
Yep, and that's that employee input space that we, a couple of slides ago, and that also too emphasizes the importance of the ongoing conversations, that hopefully it shouldn't be a surprise, or the employee doesn't feel like they need to wait until the end of the year to talk about those things. But if something is occurring throughout the year, then there's some additional coaching that should be taking place during those ongoing conversations as well. But definitely getting all perspectives is extremely important in order for this to be effective and everybody feels supported.
Since compensation recommendations are based on performance reviews, does the more simplified format with only a 3-point rating offer enough differentiation to objectively support recommending one employee receive a higher percentage increase than another? Do you want to take that one, Christina?
I can start, but yes, please chime in. So I can speak from more of a general standpoint. I am not specific to CSE, where Joy would be the local expert. But the 3-point rating, research has shown that there's not a lot of difference between understanding a 5-point scale and a 3-point scale. So 3 points is really where supervisors can make meaningful differentiations between performance. And again, there's research in this too, that a lot of times too, if you have a 5-point scale, most of the employees fall at 3 or above as well. So it's really just kind of recalibrating and being clear about the expectations. And again, everybody's kind of in the same boat. So it's understanding that when you meet expectations at that midpoint level, it is really understanding that you're meeting expectations, you're doing a good job. Those that are doing well above and beyond, meeting or exceeding expectations, what does that look like? Are those maybe that do need some additional improvement? Another piece too is kind of the calibration piece that should is an effective piece for supervisors or leadership to look at, to make sure that supervisors are understanding what is meet and how does that kind of relate and connect with what needs in other teams and areas. But 3, again, it's simplifying things. 5-point scales or 3 can make meaningful differences between them. And again, it's a change. More information will be coming, and more support and resources and tools will be available by the time we get to that, where supervisors do need to make some discernment or some distinguishes between the supervisors. So again, it is a change. We do want to provide the tools and the support and the resources for supervisors to feel that they can make meaningful differences, because that's what it's about: simplification and making sure that people receive the feedback about performance as well. Hopefully I answered it. Joy, more to add?
Yep. What I'd like to add about that is, first of all, to say that what this will do, in addition to simplifying, is that meets expectations is where the majority of our people should be landing, because meets expectations is what we expect. It is the place where the majority of folks should be. They're meeting expectations, they're doing their job, they're doing what we're doing them, they're doing what we are paying them to do. That exceeds level is where you look at somebody and you're like, you are knocking it out of the park every single day. And we're talking about overall performance. So that is citizenship, that is attitude, that is, going above and beyond on a consistent basis, not a special project here or a special project there. They are consistently, that is their MO. And so it is, I think the word that Christina uses, that calibration, it's really getting your leaders together, you as leaders, for those of you that are in the audience, getting together to say, hey, what does exceeds look like? What is that model? And getting everybody comfortable with the 3 is where we should land. And I think that once everybody sees what that looks like in their area, ideally in smaller areas or smaller colleges, they're able to do that across their colleges. We're obviously not, because we do so many different things, but at least in your area, what does it look like to knock it out of the park on a daily basis? And figure out what that is. And then the needs improvement is, okay, you know what, you're right there, you just need a little bit of help on this, or you're still working on it, or you're still learning this and that type of thing. So it's really about that calibration, making sure everybody knows what does it look like to knock it out of the park every day. So, and again, there will be more resources coming, but that's how I look at it from a CSE lens. So I hope that answered your question. If not, definitely let's have additional dialogue on that. What would be an example of a tangible, trackable individual D&I goal? One of the things that I can think of would be attending the OED certificate trainings. So perhaps I'm going to attend 3 by summer or 3 by whenever. And that way it is simple. You've got your measurement, and you're obviously, they're D&I focused. So that would be something that I would say is a goal, is a great goal, D&I goal.
Another one that just to throw out there to think about is a goal maybe around how to intentionally bring D&I, how to make the work more visibly D&I. So if it's something that seems like even a process where you have been just doing it a certain way for a while, what are some ways to kind of increase the D&I aspects of that particular process and being intentional to include? Is it different perspectives? Is it working with different people? So think about that might be something else too, about kind of bringing it into your work more visibly than it already is. Or maybe it's already there, but yeah, just making it visible or helping other people, cross-train or, increase the D&I aspects of their own work as well. Great question though. Any other questions at this point about the simplified performance management, just kind of in general or maybe specifically? Excuse me.
I think we caught them all so far.
Awesome. We will move ahead then, but again, please continue to use the chat for additional questions that you may have as we kind of finish up some of these final remaining slides. So next up, I'm going to turn it over to Joy to share next steps.
All righty. So during the remainder of the calendar year and into the new year, we want you all to be talking as supervisors, as colleagues about what you heard today. Mull it over, think about ideas, think about strategies, approaches, explore the resources. Christina's going to go over some additional resources here in just a few moments. There's the supervisory development. There's also the performance management site. And the resources are really, really well done. Revisit goals and priorities for this year. I realize things may have changed just a bit, and you're just like, these goals are out the window. But talk about, and think about what is next, or what are some things. Your goals may just go from 2020 to 2021, but think about then how do you refresh them. And one of the things that I've seen some goals out there, and people have like 10 goals. The 1 to 3 goals is really important, because once you get above that, your opportunity for fulfilling all of those goals diminishes greatly. So refreshing is really something you may want to think about. In the next few weeks, I know I mentioned in the initial communication that I didn't specify that the 11/20 workshop is for supervisors, but it is going to be geared towards supervisors. It's the goal workshop. And the reason that is because we want the supervisors to really get a grounding in that, with hopes that then they will cascade that information to employees. And the resources that will be shared at that workshop will definitely be available to employees, but we're really wanting to promote that dialogue between supervisors and employees. And so I know I said watch for the invite, but it'll be another Zoom call. So I don't want to presume and just place an invite on your calendars. So the Zoom call-in information will be coming. For both supervisors and employees, again, revisit goals, continue your meetings. I know we all have Zoom fatigue, but please, continue checking in, provide and receive feedback from one another. Just keep the dialogue going. And then of course, at the end of our performance cycle, that's when everyone is going to, that are using the tool, are going to fill out the forms and conduct their performance review meeting. If you recall, our performance cycle is now March 1 through February 28th. So it will be ending at the end of February for the 2020 performance year. Okay. Questions on any of that?
Yeah. Any questions? Okay. I will move forward through the resources then, but again, continue to use the chat to throw anything in there. So as Joy has just mentioned, there are a lot of resources out there. So whenever you have an opportunity or schedule it in, to take a spin through the resources that are available. The two main places, this first one here is the z.umn.edu performance management. This site is created by the Office of Human Resources, but it's for the simplified performance management approach. It has some of the context on the process side. There's also a link on the left-hand side for PAT. So once you do have access to that, there are a lot of quick guides, resources, and videos for the getting up to speed on the PAT side of things as well. So again, it's understanding the process, how to incorporate these strategies into your own daily work or weeks, and then also just kind of understanding at some point how to use the system so that you can capture the pieces as you go. The other piece is the supervising.umn.edu or the supervisory development site. And while it has supervisory in the title, it is resources for everyone. Everyone has access to this. This has some quick guides to it. It has additional videos. It goes beyond what the performance management covers. So performance management is one aspect of supervisory development, but it's not the only aspect. So if you do visit that site, you will see some of these performance management pieces, and they are they do cross over. So that we're using the same ones, but then there's additional information too for supervisors or for employees too, to watch videos or just to understand these concepts a little bit more as well. So those are the two main places. And again, via the performance management site, you can get to the performance appraisal tool or the PAT site as well on the left-hand menu of that screen. With that, that is all the content that we have to present today about this new simplified performance and management approach. So I will just say, feel free to add questions. We'll stick around for a little bit to see if anything comes in. If not, I will point you to Joy's direction. Reach out to Joy if you have questions. You can always reach out to myself as well, just for more general conceptual things. But yeah, it was great to be here today to present this information, and I will see you in future webinars, Zooms, and stuff throughout the year as well as we continue to implement this.
Thanks, Christina. I do want to mention for the, excuse me, the PAT administrators, which are the administrators, department administrators and center administrators. Don't forget to get your admin ARF forms to me so that you can have access to the tool. The PAT admins are going to be the individuals that will be initiating the reviews so that you will actually be able to actually send in, excuse me, your review form when it's time.
Awesome. Again, thanks everyone. I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. So hopefully at this point we have answered everything that you would like to know, but please feel free to reach out as you review the resources if questions come up. And for supervisors, we look forward to connecting more and discussing more of this in the supervisor workshops to come.